What is up? Welcome to another edition of the NFL Fantasy Live podcast. I am your man, MG Marcus Grant, alongside the Fantasy Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano. Fabs, what's going on?
Oh, I'll tell you what's going on.
There's the 2-1 to Judge. Swung on. There it goes deep left. It is high. It is far. It is gone. A Judgian blast. Aaron Judge hit one over the auxiliary scoreboard, over the grandstand, into the bleachers. All rise. Here comes the Judge.
Yeah, buddy. I know it's baseball, but I don't care. My Yankees are going to Beantown.
Are you done?
To face the Red Sox. All right, let's talk fantasy football.
Are you done? You know what's funny about you guys?
I'm sorry.
You Yankee fans are funny because you guys act like you've never been in the playoffs before. Like you are.
No, we just get excited about it like we've never been there before. There is an electricity that runs through Yankee Stadium.
You guys act like you've never, you guys have what?
Dude.
You guys have like 50 million championships, and you guys are. This is the wild card. You guys shouldn't even get excited about the wild card.
Passion.
You shouldn't get excited about the wild card. Here's the thing.
We have to.
Here's the thing. I don't like. I went to USC, right? So you know how I feel about UCLA, right? But the thing that I will respect UCLA for is. You go to Pauley Pavilion, right, and they have their championship banners for all their basketball years, right, when John Wooden was, running things there. And the one thing they say is, we don't put up we don't put up banners for conference championships. You guys are basically putting up banners for conference. You guys are the Colts. You guys are the Colts celebrating your wild card
every
berth.
Baseball
That's what it is.
Does it. You win in the postseason, you celebrate, you move on to the next city. Right, and that's what we're doing.
Right, but it's yeah, I mean, it's cool. You're in the playoffs. You are celebrating this. You have been on this all day. This is the first. It's you're the Cubs. You're not the Cubs. Clean yourself up.
No.
Have a little self-respect.
It's passion. It's called passion.
Have a little self-respect,
It's like
Yankee
we've
fan.
never been there.
I can help you out, Fabs. I'll say this to Marcus, and it's a fair point. I'm not going to argue
Have a little
that.
self-respect,
It's a
Yankee fan.
Very, very fair point. I will say, for me, at least personally, and I think some fans might feel the same way, when the Yankees did win in 2009 with the kind of bought team, when you had A-Rod and you had, you got Sabathia, who now has become, a true Yankee, and Burnett, all those kind of guys. Mm-hmm. It's a way, way different feel with this team because it feels like this team was brought from the Cashman did his job, made a lot of trades, got guys from the farm system. Now it's Judge, it's Torres, it's Gary Sanchez, it's Didi, and a great trade that no one spoke about when he first made it happen. Yep. Luis Severino, who pitched yesterday for us, he was a guy in our system, so it reminds us of those Jeter, Rivera.
There's a new excitement with this team.
It's a new young squad. It's fun.
So
clean yourself up. That's it.
I tried, Fabs.
Clean yourself up.
Not doing it. You're not going to get it.
You're better than that.
If you hate the Yankees, you're going to have every excuse in the book to continue to hate the Yankees.
What I really want is for this series, I would like the earth to crack open and swallow both these franchises. That's really what I want. Anyway, we got plenty to talk about on this one. Of course, Week 5 is underway. By the time you listen to this, the Thursday night football game may be in progress or have been played by the time that's done. But we'll get to the rest of Week 5. We'll, of course, have Eddie's Delirious pick. Oh, by the way. Hi, Eddie. We didn't actually officially say hi. You jumped in, but how are you today?
I am very good. I think our Yankees kind of opened their showed how I'm feeling great.
He's proudly wearing his interlocking NY hat there behind the glass.
I am, yeah. I
love it.
I obviously care very much about my fantasy football team. But right now, it's very equal with my Yankees right now. So
There you go. So of course we'll have Eddie's Delirious pick. We'll do some mailbag questions and a whole lot of other things going on in this show. But first, let's do some news.
Let's do the news.
We will start in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon returned to practice this week. He is hoping to be cleared in time for the Bengals game against the Dolphins. Has been out for a couple of weeks dealing with some injury issues, but this seems to be just in time, right? Because Mixon is back. Gio Bernard looks like he might be out, so it's just sort of a rotating door at running back. But either way, it's a really good matchup for those guys.
Yeah, it is. And the Dolphins have been bad. They've given up 6 scores and the 4th most points to running back so far this season. So regardless of who is starting for the Bengals, they're starting for your fantasy football team.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Joe Mixon was – the thing that surprised me in week 1 was just how many snaps he got. We all knew
touch machine.
We all knew he was going to lead that backfield, but the fact that in week 1, Gio Bernard was not a thing. I mean, remember, people were dropping Gio, and it made sense because I think Joe Mixon played something like 90% of the snaps, and it was like.
Although if you've been riding Gio the last few weeks,
hey man,
he's been really good.
He's been great for me.
That's
the last
a big
couple
loss.
of weeks. But he's going to go back to the bench. It looks like for the time being, and it'll be Joe Mixon's show. Speaking of back to the bench. Leonard Fournette, back to the bench. We know T.Y. Hilton out for Thursday Night Football. But the bigger thing with Fournette, he was hurt early. He came back maybe a little too soon, got hurt again. And now they're saying there's no timetable for when he comes back. I mean, it could be a while for him to be out. Obviously, it's a big deal this year, but this is starting to become the story of Leonard Fournette now. I mean, this is a thing I feel like it's gonna start to follow him. Like when we get to August next year, we're talking about drafts again. I feel like the story with Leonard Fournette's gonna be, yeah, but can you trust him to stay healthy?
Yeah, no doubt about that. And now, first off, if you handcuffed him with Yeldon, I mean, that would be tremendous because now you've got a guy who should see the lion's share of the touches for the Jaguars, and he's got the Chiefs this week, and that is just a great matchup. But these hamstring injuries, you've got the one with Dalvin Cook as well. I mean, these things could take some time to heal. And so you could be playing without Fournette, who you probably drafted in round 1 or 2, or Dalvin Cook, round 1 or 2, for a few weeks now. And to me, and I said this earlier in the week, I would rather the teams let these guys get healthy, okay? Stop screwing around, putting them in games with snap counts and all this ridiculousness. Sit them down, let them get healthy, come back, you're good to go. Because both of these guys are very important keys to their offenses, especially Leonard Fournette. But in the meantime, TJ Yeldon is a very nice start.
Yeah, it's easy for you to say because you're not trying. Your paycheck doesn't hinge on you winning football games either.
I know, but I mean, you still have to be smart with these guys. Like you don't win these games now. You got to really worry about what's going to happen in the future. And I'd rather have a guy like Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette in the second half of the season when I'm making my playoff push than right now because these teams can get through without their lead backs at this point, I believe. But once you get to the second half of the season, man, and defenses are a little bit worn down, and the running back position becomes even more valuable. I just think I'd rather have these guys healthy in the second half of the season, run them, and have that advantage in your backfield.
It's an interesting. And look at this. So I'm looking at the headlines that we have here, right? And it's all running back talk, right? So Dalvin Cook, you mentioned he's questionable. We don't know exactly when he's going to be back. How serious this issue is going to be. You mentioned that he said he's not 100% so far on this thing. The good news. Devontae Freeman is back after being out since week 1 when he suffered an injury in the season opener against the Eagles. He's expected to come back and play this week against the Steelers. So it looks like the Falcons' offense is going to be full squad. And look, they have been running on all cylinders lately anyway, but now you add Devontae Freeman back against a bad Steelers defense, and it's all systems go there.
Yeah, and Dan Quinn, the head coach of the Falcons, has already confirmed that Freeman is going to play this week, so you can get him back in your starting lineup. I say he is an RB2. Quinn's quotes here was that Freeman feels good and explosive. Those are two good things to feel when you're a running back or an NFL player, regardless of position. And this is going to be an absolute barn burner there at Heinz Field. I mean, I think we all sort of expect that. Neither one of these teams has a defense. So you put Freeman back in your lineup. Coleman definitely goes back to being more of a flex starter. And Ito Smith to the waiver wire.
Last one, Royce Freeman. Calm down.
Come on.
Settle down, Beavis.
All right, sorry.
Vance Joseph saying Royce Freeman needs more touches.
He does.
And, he played very well last week against the Chiefs. And he has played pretty well when he's gotten opportunities, but it's been hard, obviously, with Philip Lindsay playing so well. I guess my answer to this is, why are we forcing Devontae Booker onto the world right now? I mean, I guess that's kind of what it is, right? Because Philip Lindsay's playing great. Royce Freeman, when he's gotten the opportunity, has played great. Why, I feel like Drax in Infinity War. Why is Devontae Booker at this point? I feel like that's the guy who's going to end up losing in this whole situation.
Freeman is so good. I mean, guy's averaging 5 yards an attempt. He looked great last week, but he's just not getting enough touches. I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's what we're hearing now from Vance Joseph. Hey, Freeman needs to touch the ball more. Now, is that going to be at the expense of Philip Lindsay? I don't think so. I think you're right that it's going to be at the expense of Booker because why? Why have Booker in the game? You've got two really good running backs, two young guys who have fresh legs, who are playmakers. And, of course, I would like to see Freeman get more touches because that was kind of my guy going into the season. And, he's had double-digit PPR points in 2 straight games, and he's not catching any balls. I mean, it's all on the ground. So this week they've got the Jets. I say Royce and Lindsay are both in that flex starter conversation. Maybe Royce moves into the RB2 situation. We'll see what happens if Vance Joseph is good on his word and he does, in fact, get Freeman more touches this week.
This is probably a bigger conversation for another podcast, but just looking at this and thinking about how the season has played out through 4+ weeks, I don't know that I'm going to draft a running back in the first round next year. I just don't. I mean, unless I'm the top pick, unless I'm the number one overall pick.
Alvin Kamara, Zeke Elliott, Todd Gurley, none. No.
I mean, just because maybe
Saquon Barkley's been awesome.
Right, but part of it is that, and I know this has been the argument. This was sort of the argument that led us to zero RB, and I know we've debated that part ad nauseum or whatever. But part of it has been the fragility of running backs and guys that get hurt, and the fact that so many of these guys that are in the top part that you can get decent production from a guy that you're getting in like the third round. So I don't know. I mean, there's still plenty of time before we get to next draft season.
Yep.
And like I said, this is a bigger conversation for a different time. But man, it's just been rough out there, man. It's hard out there for a running back pimp. That's all I know. That's pretty much everything you need to know.
That was the news.
G Suite is a suite of cloud-based productivity tools that includes Gmail, Docs, Slides, Sheets, and Drive. And these tools improve your work life both in terms of your experience and the outputs you create. Hence, their new campaign, Make It with G Suite. When you have 20 identical versions of a document labeled Final and no clue which is the latest, so you make another version, you name that one Final? I mean, you've been there, right? I mean, with G Suite by Google Cloud, a range of work apps like Gmail, Docs, and Slides lets you make real-time updates to the same document without having to keep track of version after version of a project. And since all the tools are cloud-based, your whole team can access the same document and work on the same page at the same time. I mean, look, actually, honestly, that's how I make the rundown for this show. It's kind of put it in a Google Doc and let everybody kind of have at it. So to find out more about G Suite's productivity tools, visit gsuite.com. That's gsuite.com. Make It with G Suite by Google Cloud. All right, week 5 is upon us. So let's talk this one out, right? Let's start. Where do we start? We'll start with Titans Bills, right? Up in Buffalo, the Titans maybe kind of the most underrated team in the league through the first month of the season. I mean, they're 3-1. They're not pretty. It's not necessarily aesthetically pleasing to watch the Titans play, but they're winning games. And last week they showed some offense. Marcus Mariota moved the ball. Corey Davis had his breakout game. So are they a thing now? Are they a thing you can kind of trust now?
Trust? No. Certainly not trust. Mariota had a very good game, and it came out of nowhere because, matchup plus he can't make all the throws with the bad elbow, and, obviously he could make enough throws to be successful. And the matchup is good against Buffalo this week, although game script, you could see this team running the football quite a bit in the second half. We'll see what happens here. But I think Deion Lewis is the best play of the Titans when you're looking at the Bills and what they can't do against the run. So this is a very nice play in PPR leagues. I mean, Derrick Henry, I'm still really struggling to even consider giving people the recommendation of playing him despite what's a great matchup on paper. And Corey Davis, I wrote and start him and sit him, and a lot of people are disagreeing with me.
Yeah, you kind of went out on a limb this week.
Because a lot of people are disagreeing with me, but one big week does not guarantee another big week. And if you look at the numbers right now, I get it. The Bills are bad. I get it. They're not a good team. But Davis runs most of his routes out wide, and the Bills have only given up 2 touchdowns, and they're giving up an average of 20 points a game in PPR leagues to wide receivers that are out wide. And again, game script. If Tennessee is up in this game, they're not going to throw the football. They're going to run it a little bit more. Davis maybe not going to see as many opportunities. People are probably not going to listen to me, which is fine, and they're probably going to start him because they see the big number last week. Don't be surprised if Corey Davis gives you a disappointing stat line this week.
The one thing I will say is the Bills' defense has not been... They haven't been a dumpster fire, right? We came into the season thinking, okay, well, just pick on the Bills. They're going to be a dumpster fire. They got torched in week 1 by the Ravens.
Look what they did to the Vikings.
And they have not been awful. I mean, their rushing defense, they're the number 12 rushing defense in the league right now. I mean, that's not bad, I mean, overall, I think they're the 20th ranked defense. I mean, again, it's not bottom of the barrel. It's not great, but it's not bottom of the barrel. So this is a team that, maybe they're not the easy mark that we thought they were at the start of the year. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not, I'd still start some guys against them. I still started Aaron Rodgers, and I started my Packers against them last week. But they are not the easy marks. They're not the Bucks. They're not the Falcons. They're not the Steelers. I mean, they are better defensively than a lot of teams in this league.
Yeah, their weakness, and again, I know it's weird because you hear like, Buffalo's ranked, so-and-so in rushing, but that's all about yards. It doesn't really have anything to do with touchdowns. But they have been giving up right around 7 catches a game to running backs. They're still one of the worst teams in terms of allowing fantasy points to opposing running backs. But overall, I mean, they have some talent. White is a good corner. I mean, so that's why I'm a little bit of a negative Nancy when it comes to Corey Davis this week.
On the flip side, has anyone seen Shady McCoy? I mean, like physically seen him, right? Like, so on Sundays when we're here at the network and we're watching games, usually we're in a room and there's like a bunch of TVs on and, everybody's kind of watching all sorts of different things. And literally, I feel like every time I watch the Buffalo Bills, I've never actually seen LaShawn McCoy with the football in his hand. Like, I look at the box score and I see obviously he doesn't get the ball a lot. He's not doing a lot. I have not actually physically seen him touch the ball this year. And it makes me wonder whether or not he is actually still a real person or if he's vaporized into another dimension. It's bad. And I don't understand why it's so bad this year.
Look at right now. He's tied for 50th in touches among running backs, and
he's that high.
He did miss that one game, but I mean he's averaging 9.7 touches a game. That's it. This is LaShawn McCoy. This guy's not some curtain jerker. I mean he's the best offensive player that the Bills have. I get he's playing with the rib. Maybe that's affecting him more than we all think. And the bottom line here is, though, if you drafted McCoy, you came into the season knowing there was some risk. Despite what he did last year, different team, offense is struggling, offensive line is worse, rookie quarterback, or Nathan Peterman, which is maybe worse than rookie quarterback. We'll see. It has been so far. But even with Josh Allen under center, I mean, McCoy's not doing much of anything. The Titans are good against the run this week, so McCoy's a fade for me, and he's going to continue to be a fade for me until he actually does something on the football field that makes me have a little bit of confidence that he can be maybe not what he's been in the past, but a little bit closer than he has been, because right now he's not startable.
I don't understand what the Bills are doing with him. I don't understand what Brian Daboll is doing as the offensive coordinator. Like, obviously you're struggling to run the football. Okay, fine. But you're not even throwing it to him. I mean, he has been a good pass-catching back throughout his career. I mean, that's been a big part of what he has done, and yet for some reason they're just not even using him in that capacity. And I cannot figure it out. And right now, if you've got him, would you drop him?
Nah, I couldn't drop. I'd try to trade him or package him or something, because you're not going to get much for him unless you could package him. Maybe somebody in your league is big on big names and thinks McCoy's going to turn it around. I certainly do not think that's the case. But dropping him altogether, I feel like if somebody in my league drops him, I'm going to want to pick him up, even though he's stinking, just to throw him on my bench and hoping he catches a hot streak.
If I saw LaShawn McCoy on the waiver wire, I don't know that I'd pick him up.
Dude, there's just nothing on my waiver wire running back.
I don't. So no, and I look at the schedule. I mean, the Titans this week, and the Texans and Colts are like whatever. The Patriots are. But he's got the Bears. He's got the Jets. He's got the Jaguars. I don't know that I want any part of that. The only real hope is that before the trading deadline, the Bills ship him out to somewhere else that's going to actually use him. Because as long as he stays in Buffalo, I don't know that he's usable. I don't know that he's rosterable.
Well, right now he's a guy that. He's definitely on your bench. There's no doubt about that. I'll give you one player, and this is desperation, guys. Okay, this is desperation. If you go ahead and you bench Antonio Brown for this guy, don't come crying to me on Twitter. No. Desperation. Okay, let me make sure that's in desperation.
Okay.
Tennessee has given up the third most yards to wide receivers lined up out wide and 5 touchdowns.
If you say Kelvin Benjamin, I'm walking out the door.
And in a game where the Bills can be behind, Kelvin Benjamin, I said desperation. All right? I'm not telling you to start him. I'm saying I have nobody to play at a flex spot in a PPR league. I am desperate, and Kelvin Benjamin's on my bench or on the waiver wire. I'm just looking at the numbers. Desperation. Even if he gets you 3 catches for 28 yards and a touchdown, that's double-digit PPR points. I'm just saying. Monday you could come in here and you could give me a backhand and say, what the hell were you thinking? But I'm just looking at the numbers on Next Gen, and the Titans aren't good against the wide receiver position out wide, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying he's great. I said desperate. You know what desperate means?
This is where the Bills are with their
desperate
right now.
It's what all the Yankee haters are out there right now. Desperate.
No, we just hate the Yankees.
Desperate.
Falcons at Steelers. Is there anybody you're not playing?
No, move on.
Okay. No, really. I mean, it really is that simple.
Maybe Chris Boswell. I don't know, because he hasn't really done all heck of that much. I'm not starting either one of the defenses. But the two players who may be under the radar, I guess is relative, but like Vance McDonald.
Right.
10 targets in the last 2 games, and Atlanta, hey, listen, their defense we know is all banged up. They've already lost 3 important keys, so he's certainly a potential top 10 tight end this week. You know, we talked about Austin Hooper a little bit, but Mohamed Sanu as well. Watch out for Sanu.
Yeah.
Steelers, not good against the slot. That's where Sanu makes his hay, so he could be a potential sleeper this week as well, but you're basically starting everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. No reason to spend a lot of time on that one because that's pretty much how it's going to go. Broncos at Jets. Mm-hmm. This week I've taken to calling Demaryius Thomas basically a PPR running back without the running back upside because it's kind of what he is. Like I looked at it this week, and his numbers are very similar to Jalen Richard of the Raiders. And Jalen Richard's not a guy, certainly you're not starting him. He's not on a lot of rosters anywhere. And if you take away, if you're blind taste test, right? You're not looking, you're probably going to move Demaryius Thomas. You're going to put him on the waiver wire and try to trade him. Like, you're not playing him. Like, is this our life now? Is he going to be a thing this year? Or is this
I don't
just
think
who
so.
he is?
I think he'll have some games that you'll sort of, peek your ears up and DT, but it's not going to be this week. And it's weird because, Stardom and Sit 'em, which I've been writing for like 2 decades, this is the first time ever that the start of the week and the sit of the week at the same position are teammates. So I've got Emmanuel Sanders as my start of the week because, number one, people are a little down on him after what he didn't do last week and what was a great matchup against the Chiefs. But the Jets have given up 38 catches, the second most yards to slot receivers this season. Sanders lines up in the slot about 62% of the time. They're not good against the slot. But they're really tough against wide receivers who are lined out wide, which is exactly where Demaryius Thomas typically is. Right now, quarterbacks against the Jets have a 59.2 passer rating when they're throwing the ball to wide receivers out wide, which is why I don't like Demaryius Thomas. But we have to give Demaryius, we'll throw him a little bit of a bone here. Case Keenum blew that throw last week.
He did.
He blew that throw.
Absolutely.
And don't tell me Demaryius Thomas wasn't running hard. Come on, dude. I mean, he's not a fast guy. He was not dogging it there. Case Keenum had him for the touchdown.
Wide open throw he missed.
And he missed it.
He just missed it.
He missed it.
Flat out.
So, but his value is certainly on the decline, and there's no question about that. I'd fade him this week.
So Case Keenum, one of the things that we said going into the season was, hey, man, he's got to be better than Trevor Siemian, right? And I guess,
I like his voice that he did that in too, because we had to do the Cowboys thing on the show today. So Marcus got back into the Cowboys voice.
He's better than Trevor Siemian, I mean, right? I guess technically he kind of has been, but the one thing I feared is that we would be reminded why Case Keenum has been a career backup.
That good Case Keenum stayed in Minnesota?
Right. I mean, last year was, as you would say, it was the magical season for him. And he sort of caught lightning in a bottle. And I think the Broncos and a lot of us, as fantasy analysts, were sort of hoping that maybe he could recapture a little bit of that. That, obviously Sanders and Thomas are pretty good. I don't know that they're, Thielen and Diggs good, but they're not bad. But right now, he looks like the same old Case Keenum who was a backup, in Houston and in St. Louis and, with the LA Rams and with he was the third string guy with the Vikings. Mm-hmm. They had a couple guys get hurt, and that's how he got to play. And now we're remembering that, and that's got to have an impact on everybody else in that offense unless he somehow becomes Minnesota Case Keenum again.
You're lucky Akbar's not here. He's out in New York doing the Megyn Kelly show because he's a big fancy pants. And he's a big Case Keenum guy,
he's a huge Case.
No, and Keenum's not a guy that I can play. I mean, not even in a 2 QB league unless you're really hurting. I play in a couple of these 2 QB leagues, and trust me, man, if I've got like a third running back who's really good and it's a PPR league, and I only got Case Keenum as an option off the waiver wire as my quarterback, super flex leagues, I would be benching Case Keenum all day long.
Yeah, probably this week I think you will. For the Jets, their running back situation has been sort of hard to figure out. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, is it Powell or Crowell?
I don't know.
Or Powell or Crowell? I mean, which one are you going with?
So, look at the numbers. I mean, 52% of the snaps for Powell or Powell. That's one of those weird things. Like it's not Crowell, it's Crowell.
It's Crowell, like,
but it's Powell.
Right, it's Powell and Crowell, but I just like calling him Powell and Crowell.
Yeah, well,
Powell and Crowell.
And the Crow, that'll make it easier. 43% of the snaps. But then when you look at the touches, I mean, they're almost right down the middle. 49-47 in favor of Bilal. Dude, if you start one of these two guys and get a good performance from it, it ain't
Good
skill.
on you.
It ain't skill. It's luck.
Good on you.
It ain't skill. It's luck. I don't trust either one of them.
I think I've always just kind of sided with Bilal Powell, but they're Bilal Powell weeks, they're Isaiah Crowell weeks.
And then there are weeks like last week where
there's like nobody weeks.
Nobody.
Just nobody weeks. Packers at Lions. Where have you gone, Jimmy Graham? Where have you? Does anybody see? I mean, he scored a touchdown last week. Finally got in the end zone, and it was kind of early in the game. And you thought, oh, maybe it's gonna happen, and like no. I mean, I thought this was it. I thought this was gonna be the year for Jimmy Graham, and he's been nothing in this offense. He's been invisible. It's not even like he's been like mediocre. He's just been invisible. In this offense.
And he's currently 6th in terms of targets among tight ends with 25. But this could be a good week because it seems like every Packers wide receiver is hurt. All of them. Like Adams is hurt. Cobb is hurt. Allison is hurt. I talked to James Jones earlier today. I said, the Packers call you this week? Because they may be hurting for wide receivers. I don't know. So if they're down 2 or 3 of those wide receivers and they've got to go with some young guys there, Jimmy Graham could see more targets in this contest. And a guy that I'm going to Aaron Jones, give him the damn ball. Give him the ball. Last week, prove anything, this guy is the best running back in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers backed him up and said, we got to get him the ball. He's the best back we've had since Ryan Grant. He reminds him of Ryan Grant. Get him the damn ball. The Lions stink against the run. Aaron Jones is a big-time sleeper this week. And it was funny because I was talking to Cynthia Freeland last week, and I said, I got a feeling Aaron Jones is going to have a good game this week. I'm not going to play him because I don't trust myself enough to start him, but I think he's going to have a good game, and he had a good game. Now I'm saying start Aaron Jones. Don't start him over your elite guys, but if you need a flex starter this week, you can do worse. The Lions stink against the run. We've seen running backs just gash them every single week, basically. So go out and start Aaron Jones with confidence, and hopefully, we'll start to see Aaron Jones emerge as that featured back. It's been a 3-headed monster. We'll see. And maybe this is the perfect storm, too, because if you've seen Green Bay missing 2 or 3 wide receivers, this time Montgomery maybe go out and run some more routes, which opens up the backfield for Aaron Jones a little bit because Jamal Williams certainly is not that good. And one thing that I saw in Pro Football Focus, which was very interesting to me, is that Aaron Jones is their highest-rated pass blocker in that backfield.
Which is kind of not what we've been
Exactly. And if he can get the job done there, I mean, giddy up. Give him the ball.
Yeah. So about that, and this is sort of a
you sound like you're about to poo-poo me.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
This is sort of a blanket thing, not just about the Packers, but about all these running back situations where we keep like begging. And I feel like at some point we're all kind of shouting into the wind, right? Because we look around, we look at Green Bay, we look in Detroit. I don't know. Pick another one. Pick another one of these like confusing.
Everywhere.
Well, Seattle used to be.
Jets,
like they sort of figured that out.
Broncos. I mean, lots of confusing.
And we keep shouting, into the wind for like start, player X, right? And like at some point, I think we just have to be resigned to the fact that like these coaches are just going to do what they're going to do for whatever reason. And while we might look at it and say that this guy is better than that guy, like Mike McCarthy is going to Mike McCarthy this up. He's going to do like.
But if Aaron Rodgers is in his ear, gazillion-dollar quarterback in the State Farm commercials, dude, if he's in his ear, we'll see.
Man, we'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, we all want things. It's good to want things.
This is true.
It is good to want things. By the other side. So speaking of which, can Detroit just give Kerryon Johnson the job already?
Yeah, dude. I mean, look at the touches too. Like last week, only 10, right? And LeGarrette 7, and they're still dividing it up, right? I mean, so far 4 games for Detroit. Kerryon had 4 more touches than LeGarrette Blount in week 1. He had 4 more in game 2. He tied him in game 3 and he had 3 more in game 4. So there's not a large difference. There's not a large gap in between touches. And even after Kerryon had the 100-yard game, first one for the Lions running back since Thanksgiving of 2013, the gap didn't increase much. It was 3. And I get it, with that contest there. The Lions threw the ball with a lot of success, especially to Golden Tate. So they didn't run it as much as maybe we would hope. But I mean, Carry-On's clearly the best guy that they got in that backfield. This week, not a great matchup against the Packers either, and, you worry about game script. The Packers maybe get ahead, although, depending on what happens with their wide receivers, maybe that's not the case, but you're right. Give them the ball, man. Yeah, imagine if fantasy owners, were head coaches. Life would be so good. We'd never have a backup command, ever.
Well, first off, Julio Jones would have all of the touchdowns.
Yes, just give the ball to one guy, and that's it. The best guy here, Aaron Jones, have 20 carries. But we're just lowly fantasy.
It is the just give it to your good players theory.
Yeah,
Who knows?
It seems to be smart.
You would think so. No. Ravens at Browns. Look, I have been all about the reconnaissance, and it goes for like a week or two, then it takes a week off. Mm-hmm. On the road in Cleveland against the Browns defense that the last few weeks has not really been as tough as it was the first couple of weeks. So maybe it's game on for Joe Flacco this week?
I have him as a sit, actually.
Okay.
I do have him as a sit. He's had a nice start to the season. 17-plus points in 3 of his first 4 games, although getting 17 now or 18 from a quarterback is not really that good.
They used to be a pretty good week, but not anymore.
Now it's like 20.
Now you have to get
like 20 is like your floor. If you didn't get 20.
A couple of weeks ago, Phil Rivers scored 21 and was like QB 12.
Dude, Mahomes had 22 this week. He was 12.
Right,
Right? So, but the Browns, they've held Flacco to fewer than 16.5 fantasy points in 6 of their last 8 home games. And Marcus knows I love to look at those trends. They're fun. So, in what I think could end up being a lower scoring game, I would fade Flacco. I don't like Mayfield this week either.
Yeah, Mayfield, I think I'd stay away from. By the way, we're just sort of doomed to a life of Buck Allen, aren't we? If Alex Collins could hold on to the football, he would be their guy. But he'll run well, he'll do some things, and then he'll get near the goal line, and he'll cough it up, and then we see Buck Allen get like the next 10 carries in a row. It's frustrating.
Yeah, Harbaugh doesn't want us to have nice things in front.
Apparently not.
That's for sure. But
thanks,
Alex Collins did pop up on the injury report this week. Now, the last thing that we've heard from our Tom Pelissero is that Collins' absence from Thursday's practice was, quote, precautionary. So keep tabs on his status. But if for some reason or another Collins can't go this week, then Buck Allen, Marcus's favorite USC product, could end up being a potential flex starter.
Look, Buck, I love you. Fight on forever. But, man, break a tackle one time. Just once.
But you know what? I thought of you when I was watching the game last week. He had one run, and you'll remember it, where he carried like 3 Steelers on his back.
Yeah, that was kind of wild.
And I'm like, he's not breaking tackles, but he's carrying like 3 dudes on him.
I'm like, man, who is that dude wearing the Buck Allen jersey?
Right, yeah.
That was crazy. Nice. So Nick Chubb had a big week last week. Had played 3 snaps, had 3 carries.
And led the Browns in rushing.
With like 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, mind you, if you take away the 2 big, long touchdown runs, he just had 1 carry for 1 yard, so obviously he sucks. This week, Hugh Jackson has said he wants to get Nick Chubb the ball more, and he's got to get more opportunities. Now, I'm not saying you rush Nick Chubb into your lineup because, again, most of that came on 2 really big runs, and that's a hard way to live. But it does make me worried that we're going to start to see the beginning of the end of Carlos Hyde as the back who's dominating the touches in that backfield. That's what worries me.
Nick Chubb is worth like a speculative ad. But, when you look at all the numbers right now, Carlos Hyde's got 87 touches and Chubb has 10. Duke Johnson's in there, too, with 21. The snap count heavily favors Carlos Hyde. And, Marcus, you know better than to believe anything Hugh Jackson says.
This is true.
He said Tyrod Taylor was going to be the quarterback. He was going to be the quarterback.
Well, he was until he wasn't.
But this is true. He lasted a couple of games, and that was it. So, I'm speculative ad for me, and that's it. Carlos Hyde is... He's been fine for fantasy owners in that backfield. They're not using Duke Johnson at all, despite paying him in the offseason. So unless I see a major turn into that sort of Nick Chubb, Carlos Hyde potential backfield committee, he's not worth picking up unless it's just to stash him and see what happens.
I know a lot of people kind of took dart throws at him late in drafts, and it hasn't paid off yet. I want to keep an eye on that one. I just want to keep an eye and see how this goes in the next couple of weeks. Giants at Panthers. Is this finally the Odell week? Is this finally the Odell week?
The matchup wouldn't suggest it. Carolina defense at home. One guy I don't like this week is Sterling Shepard, and that's another.
Right.
What do you mean? He's had 20+ fantasy points in 2 straight games
this week.
Okay, Now, if you actually rolled those points over, it's not like, cell phone minutes. If you rolled those points over into the following week, then I'd start Sterling Shepard. That's not the case. Sterling Shepard is got a bad matchup. You look at what the Panthers have done to slot receivers so far this season, they have been very tough. Now, back to OBJ, and it's funny, too, because, I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter who are asking me, should I trade Odell Beckham Jr. for wide receiver X, or should I trade Odell Beckham Jr. for running back X? I mean, right now,
if you trade him to me, sure.
Right. I still have no problem. I mean, the target's still there. He's still getting the catches. You know about depth of target. That's sort of been a bit of an issue. Maybe it's Elijah. What's his middle name?
Elijah Nelson.
There you go. See? This time, he had my back. He knew it. Elijah Nelson. I don't know. Maybe that arm just ain't what it used to be back when he was in his 20s, but I still feel like OBJ is a very hard player to trade away, and I do believe that he will bounce back. But again, I said this on the last podcast or last week, you couldn't expect him to be guaranteed double-digit touchdowns when Saquon Barkley is added to this offense. You just can't. I mean, the Giants didn't have a running game last year, and I get OBJ is awesome, and he's talented, and he's one of the most fun wide receivers in the league to watch. But, I mean, the Giants' offense changed a little bit. Shermer comes in, new system, and they have this elite running back that they took at the top of the draft, and he's going to get his touches. And Saquon Barkley is getting a ton of touches. So I don't expect a huge game from OBJ, but I expect him to be startable every single week, just like he's always been ever since he's come into this league. But you do have to temper your expectations because this is a different sort of Giants offense that we're seeing. And OBJ has no longer been the focal point. Maybe he will be at some point, but right now, the best fantasy player in Big Blue is Saquon.
Right, but I wonder about that. So, how long is that sustainable, though, right? Because, sure, they spent the second overall pick on him, and maybe there is some desire in the Giants front office to try and prove everybody wrong and saying that they were, it was okay for us to take a running back at number 2, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But if this offense is still bad, and if it's still dragging up the rear in terms of the NFL, and this team continues to lose football games, I mean, the Giants right now they're a bad 1-3. They're a really bad 1-3. Mm-hmm. And at some point, it just can't be sustainable for them to keep feeding Saquon Barkley at the expense of not moving the football. And you go back to last year, everybody talked about how great Shermer was with that offense in Minnesota. Yep. They still found ways to get the ball downfield to their playmakers. And, maybe part of it is that because they lost Dalvin Cook early in the season, they had to sort of change things up. Who knows? Maybe if Dalvin Cook stays there all year, maybe that offense gets bogged down and clogged up because they're trying to get their running back going at the expense of Thielen and Diggs. But when he was gone, they found new ways to do it. And I just wonder if this thing keeps up, at some point, do you go back and look and you say, hey, look, that dude that wears number 13 really makes this thing go. Let's get him the football in as many possible ways. I also think that this week, Eli has seen a lot and heard a lot about how he's missed some throws downfield, about how there have been, guys open well downfield that he hasn't thrown to because he's decided to check it down to Saquon. Maybe he starts to force some things. I don't know, but I just don't think this is. And I don't know, Eddie, get in here because you are a resident Giants fan here.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It just look. I know everybody wants Saquon to be great, and I know his talent is certainly outstanding. But I just feel like they can't keep doing this over and over again if their offense isn't going to be productive.
Well, I read a couple interesting things that I never even noticed, and I've watched every sad minute of those games so far. He's never ran the ball 3 times in a row. And there were stretches. There was a stretch last game versus the Saints where Wayne Gallman was in for 8 straight snaps,
which is weird.
So they're using him a lot in the check down role, but they're also really not pounding the rock with him. And then drafting guys second overall, and then you put Wayne Gallman in, who ends up fumbling, which kind of changed the tide of that game because there was a point where it was very close. I mean, at halftime it was close, but it's also funny with that Wayne Gallman fumble. The original play call was throwing the ball downfield, and I think Eli, like you said, Marcus, he's just looking to check the ball down. The yards in the air for his ball, I think, is 3rd in the league now, 3rd worst. And there were opportunities for him to make good throws last week with the line who they're not great, but they blocked better than they have in the previous games versus Jacksonville and versus the Cowboys. So like, yes, the offensive line is pretty poor. I know, like, PFF only ranked 2 of their linemen in the 70s. Everyone else is 60 or below, which is pretty harsh.
Right.
But there's something up with him, Eli, too. With just I don't know if it's his age, him being just shell-shocked of being hit so much that he's just not. The offense is just suffering tremendously. And also, I think because the offensive line is bad, you're not going to get a ton of rushing yards from Saquon. It's just a really bad mix.
And you're not going to get a lot of time to throw the football downfield so Odell Beckham can make plays in the vertical passing game.
I hope so. I mean, I think
That's been an issue.
Yeah, because he's afraid to stand in the pocket and make that 20-plus yard throw down the field. He doesn't want to do any of those strikes where he's hitting Odell in the vertical route. So it's just been a really ugly, boring offense to watch. I mean, they have not scored 30 points since 2015, and it's currently 2018. So.
And he'll be facing James Bradbury, I believe, this week. So we'll see how that matchup goes. I'm just looking at the schedule here. You got Philly at Atlanta, so he should get healthy there. Washington, then a bye, then at Niners, Tampa Bay, 2 good matchups in a row. At Philly, then at home against Chicago. That's a tough one. He's actually got a really tough stretch at the end of the season where he's got at Philly, then he's got the Bears, and then at Redskins, Titans, and then at Colts in the fantasy championship week. So if Odell Beckham Jr. maybe turns it around mid-season, he could be a guy that you may be trying to deal once we get into the fantasy playoffs for something real big.
He's been getting targets.
Something real big.
He's just not scoring. Like, he's caught, I think, 2 games he's had so far, 11 catches and 9 catches. Like, he's getting the ball.
He's getting targeted, yeah. But, I mean, he's not producing a whole lot in terms of making plays downfield. And, what do we think when we think of Odell Beckham Jr.? These ridiculous circus catches. Eli's throwing the football deep, and he's coming in and having putting up huge numbers, and that just hasn't been the case overall. He's still seeing a lot of targets. His yardage is still there, but it's not equating into touchdowns.
So this is not a fantasy question. This is just an actual football question, right? If this team continues to be bad, and we get to Thanksgiving or whatever, and they're kind of out of it. We get to December, and they're out of the playoff race. Do we see Kyle Lauletta?
Oh, man.
Yeah, they should. 100% they should. I'm totally on that train, and I've read a lot of stuff about Lauletta, and, like, teams, the scouting departments, their analytics departments, they rated this guy like he was the equivalent on their charts to, like, a Tony Romo or a Jimmy G. Obviously, he might not amount to that, but just hearing that alone is pretty good. I would be all for him. The one thing, again, that going back to the offensive line would scare me is that he would come in and get killed as well, whereas I almost just rather Eli just take the brunt of that hit. But I definitely think the Giants will be in the market for either drafting a quarterback like Herbert Morgan would be a great move.
As a Giants fan, are you disappointed that they didn't draft a quarterback?
Not remotely.
Oh no!
I'm so
I know
happy.
you have waved the flag
so
for
many
Saquon.
times.
Yeah.
Saquon, because this year's draft, if you look at the draft, it's heavy D-line, which the Giants really don't need. They're not going to take Ed Oliver or Bosa, whoever, Rashawn Gary. They're going to take a quarterback, and no team is going to end up worse than them in record-wise. As my prediction, will need a quarterback because most of the NFL has a relatively okay quarterback, so that they could end up taking Herbert 5th, 6th, 7th overall, and then you have the best running back who's come out in quite some time, and I think Saquon's showing that. So I rather would have Saquon plus the quarterback from this year, this upcoming draft, than maybe a Darnold and then whoever they could take in this one. So I'm totally fine with that, and I think you have a young quarterback with Saquon, OBJ, Evan Ingram, Shepard. That's a much better offense, and obviously the offensive line needs 3-4 other pieces, but that's just still on the process.
So this is my last point on this, and we'll move on. This is more Giants talk than I had planned on, but I would say at some point I think you got to play Lauletta just because Eli is 37, going on 38. He's got 2 years left on his contract, arguably 2 years left in his NFL career. And even if you're not drafting a quarterback next year, which I understand. I think you just got to see what you've got, just because you can't have Eli just dragging that arm through another season again next year.
The Saints don't have top end pass rushers. I mean, and they beat the Texans, who have arguably two of the better ones, and I don't know how that even happened. But like I said, like if Eli's getting time, you got to make those throws downfield. If he's not doing it, then maybe the problem actually is him. Yeah,
we'll see. Dolphins at Bengals. what I was going to drop an expletive here. What are they doing with Kenyon Drake? What are you doing, Adam Gase? What are you doing? You know, we have a lifeline to Adam Gase, right? I mean, Cynthia Freeland has a connection to Adam. We should just get her on the phone and like have her ask Adam, like, what are you doing? What are you doing with Kenyon Drake? It doesn't make any sense.
Somehow I feel like he's not going to listen to it.
Probably not. And look,
Maybe he'll listen to Cynthia, but I don't listen to
I don't even have Kenyon. I didn't draft Kenyon Drake anywhere, but because I mean, I was kind of worried. I was worried that Frank Gore would sort of eat into his touches. I didn't just think that Adam Gase was just going to not give him the football.
Yeah, and in terms of the snaps, I mean, it's 62% to 39%, but then you look at the touches, Frank Gore has 5 fewer touches than Kenyon Drake. 5. This guy's 258 years old in running back years, and he's got 5 fewer touches than a guy who went nuts in the second half of last season, was averaging right around 21 touches a game. He was a league winner from a fantasy standpoint. And this is what I feared. I have 1 share of Kenyon Drake. It's in a best ball league. And because I like the explosive component to his game where he can maybe put up a huge number, but they are not giving him the football. You've got Cincinnati this weekend. I say he's no more than a low-end RB2, maybe a high-end flex starter. And that's it. That is it. He has been a massive disappointment. But again, I didn't like him coming into this season. Drake has never been a featured back. Like, he was a featured back almost because he had to be in the second half of last season because the Dolphins were no longer with the JHI. He was traded, and Damian Williams was hurt as well. So they didn't have anybody. I mean, they didn't have anybody, and they gave him the ball, and they fed him the ball. It was the first time really he's been a featured back. You know, in college at Alabama, of course, Derrick Henry was there as well. But Kenyon Drake he doesn't fit the profile, and I guess Adam Gase agrees with that because he is not getting him enough touches to make him fantasy relevant, or even a guy that you can potentially start with any kind of confidence right now. He clearly is a risk-reward RB2 flex starter. He is not what we thought. A lot of people thought that he could have been coming off of what he did last season.
I mean, I just look at, but his first couple weeks weren't bad. I mean, for what they wanted, part of it is that the Dolphins just don't run any plays on offense.
And they got crushed last week.
I think they are running the fewest plays per game on offense. I am starting to be of the opinion, although also that in today's NFL, and I know we talk a lot about game script, and in some ways it does have an impact, but I think with the way the NFL is today and the way offenses operate, game script is less of an issue because even if you can't run the ball, you can still throw the ball to your running backs because so many running backs are so much involved in the passing game, and it's hard. You have to be a really special runner to get on the field if you can't catch the ball. Like, you've got to be Jordan Howard, and even he's catching it more. You've got to be Adrian Peterson in his prime. You've got to be, I can't even think of anybody else who is strictly a runner that is any kinds of effective. So I'm starting to think like it's just coaches poor scheming. Like, pro tip. Just because a guy's an NFL head coach doesn't mean he's smarter than you at football, right? I mean, let's just be honest about that because we all seem to think that just because somebody gets a coaching job in the NFL that, obviously they spend more time studying it probably than the average person, doesn't mean they're smarter at it than you. And sometimes they make bad decisions, and you just have to wonder what on earth Adam Gase and the Dolphins are doing because Kenyon Drake's just not getting the football. I see you wrote here, A.J. Green versus Xavier Howard, which is kind of an interesting matchup this week.
Yeah, it is. No question about that. I mean, Howard has sort of gotten himself into the news in terms of fantasy football because he's played well. I'm not telling you that A.J. Green is not a start this week. Maybe there's more targets funneled to Tyler Boyd, although I can't see how there would be. I mean, this guy is getting targeted a ton. He is playing some great football right now. But the Bengals offense is suddenly very fantasy friendly, whereas last year, not so much. Andy Dalton now is a startable asset in fantasy. Obviously, A.J. Green. Tyler Boyd is now a startable asset in fantasy. Joe Mixon or Gio Bernard, whoever the running back is clearly a startable asset in fantasy. And one player who is a really deep sleeper, okay? He's a really deep sleeper, and I can't pronounce his last name. I tried to do it on the show today, and I butchered it. You tell me. This is how it's pronounced. C.J.
Uzama.
Yep. Tyler Eifert out for the season.
If you're searching for him, just type in UZO and you'll find him.
CJ Uzama. And if you're hurting at tight end, and so many of us are, he's worth a look. And this is what we've come to. I mean, in my column, I have Jeff Swaim in there, man.
We are literally spinning the wheel.
I mean, yeah. So, but the Bengals offense, and we thought it was going to be better because it couldn't be worse than it was last year. With the additions of the offensive line, with Joe Mixon being the featured back, with the emergence of Tyler Boyd, this offense has become really, really good. I would not play the Miami Dolphins defense this week. First 2 weeks, they had 13 points in both weeks, looked really good. I would not touch them with a 10-foot pole. If I'm talking about Dolphins in this game, I like Kenny Stills, and I wouldn't play Ryan Tannehill. You're obviously going to be playing Kenyon Drake, or maybe it's not obvious. Maybe you have some backfield depth. But if you look at the numbers right now with Kenny Stills, I mean, the Bengals have given up the 5th most yards and 5 touchdowns to wide receivers who line out wide, which is where Stills sees around 60% of his routes. So he's I don't know if he's under the radar, but I do think he's a decent play as a flex starter this week.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. If you can sit Kenyon Drake, sit Kenyon Drake. If you got help somewhere else, I just don't want that headache anymore. I'm done with it. Have you ever looked at your credit card statement and been shocked by the interest rate?
Yes.
Sure. Lots of people.
Like
apparently.
every month.
There you go. Well, did you know that you could actually roll all of your credit card debt into one monthly payment at a lower fixed interest rate? Lightstream offers credit card consolidation loans from 5.89% APR with autopay. That's lower than the average credit card interest rate of over 18% APR. Get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000. You can even get your funds as soon as the day you apply because Lightstream believes that people with good credit deserve a great interest rate and no fees. And now, our listeners can get a special discount on top of Lightstream's already low rates. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/NFL. That's lightstream.com/NFL. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.5% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/NFL for more information. All right, we are going through week 5 here on the podcast. We have moved on to Raiders and Chargers. Maybe the most telling thing about this game, and I saw a tweet about this. First off, I can't wait for years from now when a book is written or the oral history of the LA Chargers move is written, is discussed. I saw a tweet that says the Chargers are pumping in crowd noise to get ready for what's going to happen when the Raiders...
Yeah, I know.
This is a home game.
Dude.
This is a home game.
It's going to be so many Raiders fans there. It's crazy.
They're pumping in crowd noise in practice to simulate what's going to happen on their own home field.
Soccer field. Mm-hmm. This is like when people were saying, oh, Patrick Mahomes, playing in Denver. This is not his first road game. Dude, one of his road games was in L.A. playing the Chargers with half the stadium full of Chiefs fans. The Chargers have a home field disadvantage, and it will come to fruition this week when the silver and black come to town because I would still argue, although maybe the Rams are catching up, most of the people in Los Angeles who are football fans root for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders... Also, look, for anybody who's listening to this podcast who doesn't live in Los Angeles, what happened is, and I first moved to L.A. the last year of the Raiders and Rams. I was a freshman in college then when they left. And, people, the Rams had a following, the Raiders had a following, obviously. But what you had was a whole generation of fans who grew up here without a football team. I mean, it was 20 years that the NFL was gone. So you have a whole generation of kids who were born and grew up here without having a local football team. What happened is a lot of them became Raider fans. A lot of them became 49er fans. San Diego it's closer than the Bay Area, but it's also a completely different region. I mean, it is completely apart from LA. So now there are still Rams fans. There are a lot of Raiders fans. There are 49er fans. And when the Chargers announced that they were moving to Los Angeles, the general attitude was like, okay. That was kind of pretty much how LA reacted to that. So, they haven't really gained that following, even though they've been a competitive team the last couple of years. But anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. What is here or there is, can you trust the Raiders passing game this week?
Man, it's tough to trust it. Even against the Chargers, the Raiders are sort of a team that's hard to predict one week to the next. I will tell you this. I got these stats from Pro Football Focus, my pal Jeff Ratcliffe over there. Amari Cooper, 2 games last year against the LA Chargers, was shadowed by Casey Hayward more than 75% of the time. And when he was shadowed by Hayward, he had 2 catches for 18 yards on just 5 targets combined. So as good as Amari Cooper was last week,
bad.
You have to sort of factor in that, Hayward really knows how to shut this guy down. Derek Carr last week, Nice stat line.
Yeah.
Good stat line. But, some of these games, Marcus, they just go off the rails. And that was one of the games that just went off the rails. The points were ridiculous. The Browns defense was supposed to be better than it showed. But it was one of those games where, and it was like Minnesota and Los Angeles too, it didn't matter who was playing defense because no one's playing defense. The offenses were just dominating every single aspect of those games. And so I'm not expecting the same kind of thing to happen. I think this could be a high-scoring game. I really like Marshawn Lynch in this game. Jared Cook. Dude,
I like Jordy Nelson this week.
Yeah,
I think this is
I think Jordy Nelson could actually outscore Amari Cooper in PPR points. But Jared freaking Cooper, Jared Cook, man. God darn it, I don't know how to predict this guy. I really don't.
Jared Cook is he's not the fantasy hero tight end hero we want. He's the fantasy tight end hero we need.
I have had years of crapping on him, telling people, dude, he is not going to be that good. He's always disappointing. And I went into this season saying the same thing because it's happened.
Of course.
Every single year. And this year so far, the number one tight end in fantasy football.
Well,
it is ridiculous.
I'm at a point where I think you start him every week. He's had a minimum of 4 catches every single week. And it might not always be great. Obviously, you're not going to get, the huge blow-up numbers from him every single week. But if you look at, week-to-week scoring, right, to be a top 10 fantasy tight end.
Yeah, it doesn't take that much.
Doesn't take that much. Last week, it was Cameron Brate. He had 8.9 points, right? So if you're figuring PPR, right, a 4-catch, 49-yard game, that's 8.9 points.
It's insane.
It's not great, but it's good enough to be a top 10 tight end. And so if Jared Cook is still getting you 4 to 5 catches every week, if that baseline is right around 8 fantasy points in PPR, start him.
Mm-hmm.
Just start him.
Yep.
So are you sitting any Chargers?
Let's see here. Caleb Sturgis kind of burned me last week. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I actually still would play him. I think he could be a top 10 kicker, but he did burn me a little bit.
Charger kickers, man.
Yeah, I know, dude. They're cursed. Chargers defense, I'm certainly not playing it. And I'm not playing Antonio Gates either. I know it's Raiders and, matchup, but he's just not on the field enough.
Look,
he's not running enough routes for me to trust him to start him, even when the matchup is favorable. Virgil Green's on the field more than Antonio Gates. Right now, you're looking at the numbers. Gates is seeing 34% of the snaps. He's averaging 16 routes a game. It's just not enough for me to start him.
This is not the old Antonio Gates. It's just old Antonio Gates.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So
exactly.
Cardinals at 49ers. I'm telling you, David Johnson is back. He is back. I said it last week. I just thought Josh Rosen adds something to this offense because he literally has some of that Jay Cutler, screw it, I'm going deep attitude. Because, look, that's what he did at UCLA. He's like, I don't necessarily have consistent playmakers, but I'm going to try to get chunk plays down the field, and I'm going to make some of these throws that maybe I shouldn't, but it'll probably work out. David Johnson's best asset was being a downfield receiver. That is where he was most dangerous a couple of years ago. And we saw it last week. He had over 100 scrimmage yards. He got in the end zone. He started to look more like himself. Mm-hmm. This week, he's got the 49ers, who defensively are not particularly great. I think we just see more of this. I think, if you waited it out and you struggled through those first 3 or 4 weeks with David Johnson, I think you can start to exhale. And look, he's not going to be what he was 2 years ago, right? You're not going to get the 20 touchdowns and the ridiculous amount of yards, but I think he starts to bounce back a little bit. I think he's going to be better.
Let's hope so. And the transition over from Sam Bradford to Josh Rosen, it didn't go well for Rosen statistically, but David Johnson, he got more touches. And that's what we need. We need more touches. We need the football in David Johnson's hands, and I think we'll see that. And this game shouldn't be a game script issue either, too. This should be a close game, a pretty competitive game. Now, the other main fantasy player in Arizona is Larry Fitzgerald, and he just can't be healthy. Larry Fitzgerald is too good to be doing what he's doing on the field right now. He's dealing with the hamstring, and until he starts to look healthy, it's hard to play him, even against the Niners. And career-wise, he has crushed San Francisco. He's crushed them. I have a hard time starting him right now. I really do, especially with so many good young wide receivers who are starting to merge, like a Tyler Boyd, for example. I can't play Larry Fitzgerald this week.
Larry Fitzgerald in the season opener had 76 receiving yards. In the 3 games since, he has had 65 total.
he's not right. He's not healthy.
He had 2 catches for 9 yards.
He's not healthy.
Ago.
Yep.
Man.
So I can't play him until I start to see some signs of life, man. I just can't do it. And San Francisco, though, they've got 2 players that are very startable this week. George Kittle, who huge game last week.
Hey, man, narrative street.
Yeah.
He and CJ Beathard were roommates at Iowa, so obviously it's all good.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I mean, you look at the numbers, too. This guy is being targeted more than all but 4 tight ends in the entire league, and one of them is Eric Ebron, believe it or not. But Kittle's a play for me as a low-end tight end 1. And then Matt Breida.
Yeah.
Going up against the Cardinals, who have been just dreadful against the run. Ask anyone who watched what Mike Davis did to them, and it will be obvious that Breida is maybe not a must-start, but he's a damn good start.
Yeah, those are 2 guys who, again, I've been saying all week, their floor remained kind of static. I mean, nothing really changed for them when the quarterbacks changed. I think mostly because they are 2 easy security blankets for a guy like CJ Beathard. You can dump it off to your running back. You can get it out quick to your tight end. And so those guys kind of remain the same. Now, where the volatility happens is Marquise Goodwin. Suddenly, all those downfield throws that Garoppolo was going to make go away a little bit. So he becomes a guy who is a lot harder to play. And Pierre Garçon has sort of been a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that his value would have increased with, Goodwin being banged up, and no, I mean, nothing.
Yeah, nothing has happened with Pierre Garçon. He's just kind of been out there. Weirdly, so you made your desperation pick earlier when you talked about
very desperate.
So maybe this isn't quite desperate on that level, but in a PPR, Kyle Juszczyk is sort of interesting. He 8 catches, 122 yards. I mean, he's running wheel routes, and he has 1 receiving touchdown this year. If you are really, really hurting, if you're in a deep league and you need a flex or something like that, Kyle Juszczyk, I mean, it was a guy that the Niners last year used a little bit in the passing game. We've seen him, especially in the red zone in his career, be a guy who gets some opportunities. I mean, we saw that when he was with the Ravens for a few years. They would use him kind of down near the goal line to catch the ball. He had 4 receiving touchdowns in 2015. So, again, if you are hurting in a PPR league, maybe you try Kyle.
Which one is more desperate? Kyle Juszczyk.
It's kind of a toss-up. So, Vikings at Eagles. Is it possible that maybe the Vikings defense isn't good?
It's possible. It's actual reality.
I mean, it's
a reality right now.
I've tried to tell myself a story where
of a lovely lady.
No, who was bringing up 3 very lovely girls. So obviously the week 1 game against the 49ers, they weren't bad. The Niners got some garbage time points at the end. But they played all right there. Week 2, they played the Packers, and it was okay. They weren't terrible, but Rodgers was less than 100% and was kind of hobbling around on that knee. So I told myself a story that week 3 happened against the Bills because they were looking ahead to week 4, right? They weren't really focused on the Bills. They were worried about the Rams the next week, and they sort of got ambushed. So I'm like, all right, so I can kind of wave that one away. Then the Rams happened, and they got trucked, right? Dude. But I'm trying to tell myself the story that maybe it's not that the Vikings are bad. Maybe the Rams are really just that good, but man, it is hard to wipe away. They gave up 456 passing yards.
They're giving up 27.5 points a game.
I mean, that's I'm really trying to tell myself this story, but man.
And you don't play that defense now. It's funny how those defensive values can change quickly in fantasy football. Like the Vikings were expected to be one of the better defenses in fantasy, and so far, dude, I've seen them dropped in a lot of leagues, and I wouldn't play them this week against the Eagles too. I think the Eagles offense is starting to come around. Carson Wentz got some starts under his belt now. They got Alshon Jeffrey back. Nelson Aguilar's in the mix. Zach Ertz is in the mix. Their running game is questionable because, they've got some injuries there with Corey Clement and Darren Sproles, and J.J. He's been okay. He hasn't been great. I think the Eagles offense is going to very soon here. Maybe it's this week is going to start showing that this is one of the better offenses in the league, and even against the Vikings, I think Carson Wentz can have a pretty good game. This could end up being maybe a higher scoring game than we sort of anticipated, although the Eagles have certainly been better at home defensively than they have been on the road. But this could end up being one of those, weird high scoring games. between two teams that came into the season where we thought, hey, their defenses are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles defense has left something to be desired this week. So you sort of answered my question. My next question was going to be: is it possible that the Eagles offense isn't that good because they have kind of sputtered around the first few weeks? But
yeah, I think they're going to be better. They're getting, Nick Foles, the first couple. I think Carson Wentz is going to get back into his groove. He's clearly got that nice rapport with Ertz and with Alshon. So this offense will certainly turn things around. I think they're starting to turn things around.
Rams at Seahawks. Now, I know you have said that there's no such thing as a must start at quarterbacks or whatever. But can we start to put Jared Goff into that box with the the Mahomes, the Breeze, the Rodgers, like those guys where when you just look at it and you kind of you don't really worry about the matchup so much. You just believe in what that guy is doing. Has Jared Goff hit that level yet?
Well, I don't know if I'm starting him against the Jaguars in Jacksonville, but he has become a guy where he's not matchup proof, but he's getting close.
Are you starting him against the Seahawks in Seattle?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah, because forget about what you know about the Seahawks, especially on their home field. Hell, they've been so good for so many years. The Legion of Boom is dead.
They're done.
It is done. And this defense is completely different. And I get it. They got the 12th man. They've got a home field advantage. It's very loud there in Seattle. But Jared Goff and that offense can make those cheers go away very, very quickly.
The 12th man ain't tackled nobody this year.
This is true. And with Russell Wilson and that offense playing like it is, and it's not good right now, I do believe Jared Goff is a guy you're playing. You're playing all your Rams this week, and you're playing all your Rams until further notice. You're playing Kupp, you're playing Woods, you're playing Gurley, obviously. You're playing Cooks, obviously. And Goff has become, again, not a must start, but a very good start. When you look at the numbers, I mean, if there was ever a season, and I get it, we're only through 4 weeks. If there was ever a season that proves that you don't need to draft a quarterback until late, I mean, this is it, dude. Right now, your top quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, who was 10th round or later. Matt Ryan, 10th round or later. Ryan Fitzpatrick, not drafted. Jared Goff, 10th round or later. Breeze, I mean, he still went off the board late. Cousins, 8th or 9th round. Phillip Rivers, 10th round or later. Okay, then one of the quote-unquote elite quarterbacks coming into the season, Deshaun Watson, falls there. And then you've got Ben Roethlisberger, 10th round or later. Andy Dalton, 10th round or later. Andrew Luck, 10th round or later. Blake Bortles, 10th round or later. I mean, it's like, and you know who I didn't mention there? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so
Tom Brady. Russell Wilson.
I'm starting to think really differently about quarterbacks in general, and I should make notes on these so we can talk about all this stuff like later on. But I mean, I'm thinking either maybe next year I just don't draft a quarterback and I just wait and see who's on the waiver wire when it's all said and done, or because of the way the rules are in this league, right? And if they're going to really throw flags on every time you get within, the area code of a quarterback, we got to maybe look as an industry at changing quarterback scoring. Because we sat here and talked about the fact that scoring 21 points makes you the QB 12 in a week. Like, yeah. Maybe we got to figure out some way to kind of tighten things up. If we're going to go out, because we've had a guy score 40 points every single.
And this is why standard is 4 points for passing touchdowns.
I was really
because we tried to get sort of the advantage away from the quarterbacks at least somewhat.
Because I was starting to lean toward maybe we should all go 6-4, and I'm like, maybe
Hell
not.
No.
So my other thing that I was thinking about one night when I was kind of loopy and not sleeping much, maybe we go 4-3.
See, like
maybe it's 4-3. Maybe it's 4 for a touchdown and 3 for interception. So that way, throwing multiple picks kind of hurts a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And literally, if guys are gonna go out and throw 5-6 touchdowns every single week, we just got to do something because this is. It's fun on the one hand, but it's also kind of just skewed things way out of whack.
Yeah, I think we see what happens this year, and then next season we see if it's an outlier.
Right. So I just think
and then you make a decision on, wow, we're going real arena football here. Quarterbacks are just way too valuable, which is odd to think quarterbacks are way too valuable because no one's drafting them. But they're valuable in that there are so many good ones, and they can really help you. I mean, heck, last week I had Russell Wilson going in one of my leagues, and he absolutely killed me. But if I started Blake Bortles or Andy Dalton or Jared Goff, I'm in a much better situation. There are no must-start quarterbacks anymore.
Right. I mean,
there's just not.
But I think that also is part of it. When there's no wrong answers at a position, that means something is weird, right? Like there has to be a penalty for you making a bad choice, and if it's harder to make a bad choice, then we gotta change.
And remember, like I believe there's 5 or 6 quarterbacks right now on pace for over 40 touchdowns.
Right, which is stupid.
Crazy.
So, are you starting any Seahawks? I mean, can you start Russell Wilson?
So no, I mean, Doug Baldwin, the Rams haven't been great against slot receivers this season, so I think Baldwin fits in as sort of a 3. That might be it. I don't know what's going on with Chris Carson. I do know that if he is healthy, Pete Carroll has ruined any fantasy value Carson might have this week because he said Mike Davis is going to get into the rotation. And why did the Seahawks draft Rashad Penny in the first round?
Why?
I mean, why?
They
made a
trade.
Why? I mean, you had so many different needs and more pressing needs, and you draft a running back in the first round who you don't even trust enough to give a featured workload to when the guy ahead of him on the depth chart isn't playing. And people were like, oh, picking up Rashad Penny. Chris Carson's out. Maybe I could flex Penny. And Mike friggin' Davis comes in and rolls over the Cardinals. And even if Carson is active this week, I can't play him.
No.
I'm playing Baldwin and Lockett. Lockett went back to being Lockett when Baldwin came back. I mean, Lockett was kind of fantasy player. Sometimes good, more often than not average. When Baldwin was out, he was awesome. Baldwin comes back, Lockett's kind of average again. So there's not a whole... I'm not playing Russell Wilson. Not playing him. Look at his numbers against the Rams. I don't know what it is about him. They have his number. Even in Seattle, more so when they play on the road, when they play either in St. Louis or Los Angeles over the last few years. But they have his number, so Russell Wilson is a definite fade for me.
Yeah, I really believed in Russell Wilson, but it's just...
This was the highest scoring player in fantasy football last year.
We're also starting to realize that, obviously one man can't do everything forever. Like he did it he did it pretty well last year, mostly by himself, but it's just there's only so long that one guy can.
And I think things will get better for him, but it ain't happening this week.
Cowboys at Texans. So there's Zeke, and then
Jeff Swaim. Yay! Jeff Swaim. Did you know that he this is like I can't even get it out because it's like so ridiculous. Jeff Swaim has run more routes than any other Cowboys receiver. Jeff freaking Swaim.
That's just eyewash, man. Like you're just running around. That's like a parent who puts his or her kid into soccer just because they want the kid to run around and get tired out. Like that's what Jeff Swaim feels.
And you know what too? Like he's actually, if you're desperate, I mean, maybe not Calvin Benjamin desperate, but if you're desperate, the Texans, they've given up the 9th most fantasy points to tight ends this season, given up 15 a game. They've given up 3 touchdowns to tight ends. Listen, this is where we're at. We're in the Jeff Swaim portion of your tight end program because it has become an absolute wasteland at this position with everybody who's gotten hurt.
I mean, yeah, it's so bad. Tight end makes me sad. Like one of the worst parts of my week now is ranking tight ends because I'm like, I know
because you get to 10 and it's like Vance McDonald.
Like basically I go, in some order it's like, Kelsey, Ertz, and Gronk.
Yep.
Jordan Reed was back this week, so I put
Jared Cook
there. But then like I just want to put like 13 guys at 11. Like that's all I want. Like just like you're just outside the top 10, and you're all kind of going to be about the same.
Throw a dart.
Like rank them all. Let the fantasy gods sort them out.
Mm-hmm.
What even is Lamar? I know I'm kind of big on Lamar Miller this week, but I'm just trying to like He's like Schrodinger's running back. Like he's either good or not good, and we can't really tell which.
Yeah, I know. And the touch share was like almost split down the middle last week with Alfred Blue, so that makes it even more of an issue. So if the touches aren't going to be guaranteed, now the Cowboys' defense is not the same without Sean Lee. There's no question about that. But I mean, to me right now, I mean Lamar Miller's a flex starter, and that's it. And that is it. And hopefully you get some production out of him, but he's risk reward at best.
He is 14th in rushing yards, which isn't terrible. He's averaging about 4 yards a carry. So in some ways he kind of is what I to paraphrase Dennis Green. He is what I thought he was. A decent sort of maybe RB2 flex sort of guy. And I know a lot of people are frustrated with him because I get a lot of tweets asking if they should trade him, if they should drop him, what they should do. And I keep telling people he kind of is what he is. The only difference is he's not scoring a lot of touchdowns. Like I would like that to happen maybe, but he he's frustrated. But I do think this is a week where you can kind of count on him a little bit. I just think, as you mentioned, no Sean Lee there. I think if they can get him out and use him in the passing game a little bit more, which they haven't really, they did a couple weeks ago against the Giants. If they could use him in that capacity, I think he has some value this week.
Yeah, he actually has, in PPR leagues, more fantasy points as a receiver than a runner.
I believe that.
But it's basically because of that one game where he had the touchdown catch. He's had 8 catches this season. So, but no,
he doesn't have a rushing touchdown. He has a receiving touchdown.
I mean, right? He's a risk reward player, and last week the matchup set up well for him, and they went with Alfred Blue in a committee.
You're not my boy, Blue. Redskins at Saints. Adrian Peterson. I actually think...
I'm still playing him.
And I know I had my minor game script rant a little earlier in this show, but I do think this is one where game script kind of comes into play and potentially works against him. Oddly enough, he's actually caught more passes this year than I'm used to seeing from him, but I don't think that that's going to be a big part of what Washington does. I just have a feeling that, New Orleans is going to go out here. They're going to do what they do. They're going to score points. They're going to move the football. I mean, they are fully operational now with Mark Ingram back. This just feels like a game that turns into a high-scoring affair, which means I feel like this is more of a Chris Thompson game than an Adrian Peterson game.
Yeah, me too. You would think it's going to be a high-scoring game. The Saints are giving up like 30 a game so far. And there's just something about these dome games, right? Every dome game, has there ever been a defensive battle in a dome? I feel like it's always 35-30, doesn't matter. So you'd think there's going to be a lot of points. Peterson will be motivated to play against his old team, where he wasn't really a Saint for that long, but I guess the divorce was not all that pleasant. So he's going to be looking to put a little bit of a beat down on his old squad. And, of course, the big story here from a fantasy perspective is that Mark Ingram is back. And Mark Ingram, who was one of the best running backs in fantasy football last season, suspended 4 games, coming back this week. I say you play him. I mean, you drafted him to play him, even if he's a flex starter, and that's why I was targeting him in some of my drafts because he was falling to the 5th or 6th round, which he should have been because, of course, he's going to miss quarter of the season for fantasy folks. But now is the time that you sort of get him out there. What I'm really interested to see is, not that he's going to have a huge negative effect on Alvin Kamara, but let's see the goal line usage. Let's see where Kamara was getting a lot of these or all of these touches before. Is Ingram going to eat into that a little bit? So, and how is this going to change the offense? Remember last year, okay? Drew Brees was not that good of a fantasy quarterback when Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara were in that backfield. He just wasn't because they were running the football more often and the defense was playing well. And I think that might be the big difference here is that maybe Brees' value and his production doesn't slide as much because the Saints' defense is not good this season.
It
is not good.
So I have been a little more judicious about where I'm starting Mark Ingram. I'm not just blindly putting him in the lineups everywhere because the Washington run defense has been pretty good so far this year. I think, hopefully there are goal line opportunities which could help him this week, but I just, between that and the fact that I believe the Saints have a bye next week, this feels like a situation where they kind of slowly bring him along, get him a little bit into game shape, take the bye next week to sort of get him really up to speed, and then he's like all systems go. Although, after the bye, I'm looking at the schedule. After the bye, the next 3 games at the Ravens, at the Vikings, although maybe that's not as bad. Maybe that's not as bad as we thought it would be. And then home against the Rams. So, I don't know. So we'll see. So anyway, those are our Week 5 previews. Hopefully you can find something that makes you happy this week and makes you productive in your respective fantasy leagues. Indochino is the world's most exciting menswear company. They make suits and shirts to your exact measurements for an unparalleled fit and comfort. All available in a wide selection of high-quality fabrics and colors with the option to personalize details like your lapel, lining, pockets, buttons, and writing your own monogram. And now Indochino is expanding into casual clothing with made-to-measure chinos. These will quickly become your go-to pant, pairing easily with anything from a suit jacket to a sweater. They're perfect for any time of the year and any occasion, from boardroom meetings to Sunday brunches. Available for an introductory price of just $79. Better yet, This week, our listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for only $359 at Indochino.com. Just enter the code LIVE at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Plus, shipping is free. Just go to Indochino.com and use the promo code LIVE to get any premium suit for just $359 and free shipping. It's an incredible deal for a premium made-to-measure suit. All right. It's that time of the week. You know it. You love it. We sit here and we mock it, but sometimes it actually makes a lot of sense. It is time for Eddie Murphy's Delirious Pick.
Just to go back from last week, I was 2 points off from Mayfield having more points than Aaron Rodgers.
Right, so it wasn't ridiculous.
So
not
close.
that bad.
It wasn't ridiculous.
Like out of all weeks for Aaron Rodgers to play poorly, and then Baker Mayfield to just versus the Raiders defense still played just not well enough.
He was decent, I guess.
Yeah. So my Delirious pick for this week, based off of a performance we saw last Thursday night, was Cooper Kupp is now my pick to be the number one fantasy receiver when things are all said and done this season. So not really a week pick, but I'm saying it this week. Yes, because of his performance on Thursday. I just think watching the Rams, and I've watched every single one of the Rams games, he just seems like Jared Goff's guy no matter what. And their lack of, I guess, a real game changer at tight end. He's the red zone target too. They do also run a lot of gadget plays with him, so he has the ball in his hands in the backfield, like running the ball. Playing Seattle twice, playing San Francisco twice, Arizona. They have New Orleans, Kansas City. Some easy matchups for him in the upcoming week. So he's only 16 points behind Michael Thomas right now, who is the lead according to my league stats and PPR. So I think he'll come back down to earth. I think he can catch him, and he will be the number one overall receiver because this Rams offense is super high powered.
Wow.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, right? Like they're the target share. Robert Woods has 34, Brandon Cooks has 33, Cooper Kupp has 32. So I mean, they're all right there, neck and neck. I mean, the catches are again, they're all similar. Cooks has 26, Woods and Kupp each have 24. I like this. I'm going to track this. This is spicy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We
got to track this for sure.
I totally like this. All right, before we get out of here, mailbag. We got some tweets there?
Yes, we have plenty of tweets. Thanks to those who tweeted to us. And we have a bonus one at the end that we could do a little cross-promotion because Dave Damashek made a trade in his league with Cousin Sal, and he wants feedback on that one, so I'll read that last. But we have at ToneD84, 1 point PPR, Emmanuel Sanders, Aaron Jones, or Will Fuller.
Ooh, PPR. I would just because it's PPR. I might go Sanders.
Yeah, I
this
agree.
Week.
Yep.
I think I go Sanders just because it's a P. If it was standard, I'd probably go somewhere else. But PPR, I go Sanders.
Okay. At the Mike Angelo, Mark Ingram back from suspension, or Galladay at the flex in PPR.
I think I would go Galladay myself.
I always go with the running back, but this time I'll go Galladay.
There you go.
We have at Kachichi 34. I've been offered Edelman and Amari Cooper for Mike Evans and Tevin Coleman. Do I accept?
Nah.
Wow, that was quick.
I want to try and get the best player in the deal, and you're not getting the best player in the deal.
At GBF7, Calvin Ridley, Julian Edelman, or Keenan Allen.
Calvin Ridley, Julian Edelman, or
Keenan Allen.
I think I might go Keenan Allen.
I got to go Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and the bonus one. So Sheck in his league with Cousin Sal made a trade. Sheck gave away Fournette and Yeldon for Patrick Mahomes and DJ Moore. Who was the winner of that trade?
Wait, say that again. So he gave away.
So
Mahomes?
Damashek gave away Leonard Fournette and TJ Yeldon, and Cousin Sal.
So he basically traded the Jaguars
backfield, correct.
For Mahomes.
For Mahomes and DJ Moore.
I think Sal kind of wins that one, though. I mean, because here's the thing about trading quarterbacks. Like, yes, I get it. Patrick Mahomes has been lights out, but you can find a quarterback on the waiver wire somewhere else. Meanwhile, when Fournette, if he comes back at some point, he's coming back at some point. I mean, then you got two running backs who can both be kind of productive.
And I'm assuming this is a redraft league, so DJ Moore really has no value whatsoever right now. So he basically traded Pat Mahomes for the Jaguars backfield straight up. I mean, that's basically what it is because DJ Moore has done nothing and isn't startable at this point. So, when people make trades, so, we had this last week. It was like, would you trade Mahomes to get Saquon Barkley? hell yeah, I would do that because quarterback is so much deeper, as Marcus said. And I could just stream quarterbacks because right now the quarterback position is going bananas when it comes to points. So to lose, and I get Fournette's hurt right now, but to lose him, and at some point he'll come back, Yeldon is a fine handcuff, it's just hard for me to do that because supply and demand. There's so much of a supply with quarterbacks, and there's so much of a demand for running backs, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of good ones as good as Leonard Fournette, that's for sure. So
yeah,
I just don't like giving up who could be an elite running back, who has been an elite running back, for an elite quarterback. I'd rather not do that.
right.
Do you think he'll get to that level this year, Fournette? Just out of curiosity.
Dude, I mean, if he's healthy, that's the big if. That's the big if.
Scares me.
That's the big if. So if it was Fournette for Mahomes straight up,
I mean, I thought he was going to be a top, I thought he was going to be like a top 3 fantasy back this year, but that was provided he stayed healthy. And
yeah,
that part.
And that's the thing. And I also, it's hard to like gauge how good or bad a trade is when one of the key components in the trade is hurt. I don't know when he's coming back. We have no idea when he's coming back. Is he going to get, 8 games out of Fournette? Is he going to get 10 games out of Fournette? I mean, Yeldon's good, but he's not Fournette. He's a nice handcuff, but he's not Fournette. So those are always really hard to gauge.
No doubt. Before we get out of here, a quick note. The NFL app, by the way, it is back this season. It's completely reimagined. I am a fan. I've got it on my phone. I've got it on my Xbox. You can use it in so many different places. You can stream live local games. You can get all the primetime games live, as I mentioned, on your phone with the all-new Game Center. You can get breaking news highlights, stats, real-time insights from around the league or your favorite team. So download it wherever you can. It actually is pretty good. I love it. I use it as many times as I possibly can. So I fully endorse that. Anyway, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks for listening as always. And always remember, 4 out of 3 people struggle with math. We'll see you on Monday.